Welcome back to the Hammer Down Breakdown following Purdue's loss to the Nebraska Cornhuskers on the road, 88-72. This one's going to be pretty short. It is already after midnight here on the Eastern time zone. But a game like tonight should reiterate how difficult it is for any team to win a game on the road in the Big Ten. That's not to say that Nebraska is not a very good team. They are. They have proven a lot of people wrong in the early portions of the Big Ten season. A lot of people looked at their non-conference schedule and thought, they may not be as serious as they are currently. They are obviously a very good team. Have now beaten Michigan State and Purdue on their home court. One of the best environments in the Big Ten. I don't think Pinnacle Bank Arena gets the credit that it really does deserve. There's a reason that Nebraska sells out their volleyball matches, on a pretty consistent basis. Their football team has the sellout streak. I put it in finger quotes because it's kind of questionable, but you can't argue with the amount of fans that do support those programs out there. But Purdue, when you face a team that's got the number of shooters, like Tominaga and Mast is a good shooter, and they put five guys on the floor that can shoot the ball over 30%. When that team comes out and shoots 61% from behind the arc, there's probably not a whole lot you are going to be able to be doing to get a win on the road. That is also made more difficult when you turn the ball over 14 times and it leads to 18 points for the opponent. There's the real big difference in the game. 14 turnovers. Again, like Matt Painter has said, you can kind of live around that 12 mark that Purdue averages as long as they're not turning into points for the other team. And tonight, that's where Purdue really, really killed itself, is those 14 turnovers. Another big thing that seems to be a little bit of a bugaboo for Purdue this season is their sort of inability to really take control at key moments of a game. You saw that against Illinois, where the Boilers get up 16 and they see that lead dwindle all the way down to 3. They push that lead back up to 21 in the second half, and they see it fall back down again to 3. That's been a little bit of a trend so far this season in a number of different games where Purdue has had control of the game, and instead of just kind of maintaining that control, you've seen those things kind of slip away. And Purdue was kind of on the other end of that today. Nebraska, to start off the game, ends up leading 8-2 with Mast grabbing 7 points and really dominating the early portions of that game. And Purdue kind of really seemed out of sorts to start the game, obviously with Braden Smith kind of throwing it to the ghost of John Wooden on the first possession, whether that was a miscommunication or something out of sorts. You kind of knew at that point, when then Nebraska goes down and hits a 3-pointer, Purdue was probably going to be in trouble for the next 39 minutes of that game. Something that I noticed in this game that was pretty concerning, but again, it might be more of a testament to the offensive output that Nebraska had tonight. Again, if a team comes out and shoots 61%, they're hitting 14 of 23 of their threes. Purdue, it's going to take a really good, really, really, really good effort on the offensive end to counter that. You saw the Boilers were able to do that against Arizona. They've been able to do that at times throughout other games of this season. But when you give up 40 points in both halves, which is the first time that's happened this year for the Boilers, it's not a recipe for success. And then when you play into the opponent's game plan and you allow them to dictate what you are going to be doing on the offensive end, that spells a recipe for disaster. And obviously, turns out Purdue gets beat by 16 points. Um, what Nebraska wanted to do was force Purdue to shoot 3-pointers. They came into this game shooting, I think, only around 35 to 38% of their shots from behind the arc. And, they took 18 in the first half. That's a massive number of threes. Now, they did shoot, 39% on the game. Again, that's a percentage that Purdue can live with. But when your opponent is shooting 61% and you're turning the ball over 14 times, again, not a recipe that you can win even at home. Even if that's happening at home at Mackey, that's just not something that you can live with. But what I noticed is that Nebraska really had 3 big time runs in this game. They had a run there at the end of the half to really push the lead. Purdue kind of had a 6-point lead, and to end and close that first half, you're talking a 22-5 run. 22-5 run that Nebraska was able to have over the last portion. I think it was like the last 5.5 minutes of the first half. Nebraska also had runs of 14-2 and 20-10. They closed the game on a 20-10 run. So in total, that is 56-17. And those 3 runs combined happened over the course of less than 16 minutes of the game. So in less than half of the game, Purdue was outscored 56-17. That is, again, a credit. I have to give a credit to Nebraska. Fred Hoiberg's offensive game plan worked to a T. Purdue was just befuddled on the defensive end, out of sorts, chasing guys, not challenging shots with their hands high. And what that means is when you close out on a guy, your hands go up, right? Your hands go up, and Purdue all too often kind of closed out and hesitated and had their hands low, and Nebraska just shot over the top of them. Whereas you've got to make it difficult, get your hands in their face, hands high, and that just didn't happen on a consistent basis. Now, some of those shots are hard shots that Nebraska hit, but all too often Purdue was chasing cutters, chasing off of screens rather than working through, having guys stunt and hedge and bump. Just too much freedom of movement for the Cornhuskers on the offensive end. And on the defensive end, again, Nebraska sort of dictated a lot of the game, allowing Purdue to continue to shoot threes, and they weren't making them, or they were making them, but knowing that Purdue was going to try to get the ball inside, and they just kind of went away from it. They did a better job of that in the second half. Obviously, Zach Edey ends up getting 15 points, but only shoots the ball 10 times. Whereas Lance Jones and Mason Gillis both take 12 shots. They both took the most shots on the team. And this is not a slight to Mason Gillis. He was a great shooter tonight. He's been a great shooter all year. This is not a slight to Lance Jones. Again, what he's brought to the team brings a different dynamic, and I think raises Purdue's ceiling and their floor a little bit. But those guys don't need to be shooting the ball the most. Flat out, if Purdue is going to be successful, those 2 guys do not need to be each taking 12 shots, totaling 24 of the total Purdue shots. If anybody's going to be leading the team in shots, it's going to need to be Zach Edey, Braden Smith, or Fletcher Lawyer. Those are the 3 guys that should be leading the team in shots. This is now another game where Lance Jones takes the most shots on the team and Purdue loses. That again happened against Northwestern. And again, it's not a slight to the young man. That's just a reality. He does not need to be taking that many shots unless he is on a heater. And, Purdue got it down to 1, and Lance takes another sort of ill-advised heat check 3 outside of sort of the realm of the offense, misses it. Nebraska goes down, scores, and Purdue would never get that close again. That was sort of their shot. And I feel like if Purdue is able to take the lead there, maybe they can grind out a couple defensive possessions, get the lead back up to 6 or 7. That might have changed things there a little bit, allowed Purdue to take some momentum. But really, credit to Nebraska, just taking the momentum away from Purdue anytime they sort of had it, and kind of doing whatever they wanted to do on both ends of the floor. Mast was really really good tonight. Really put Edie into some tough situations. But again, what are you going to do when a team shoots 61% from behind the arc? Uh, you know, Life is tough on the road in the Big Ten. That's all you can say. That's about all I have for this. You kind of tip your hat to Nebraska, congratulate them, and move on. Purdue's got Penn State on Saturday at home. Um, but I know, and I haven't really kind of checked the Twitter sphere, the Twitterverse, and so forth yet for kind of Purdue fan reactions at this point. I'm going to guess there's a lot of people in there, you know, um, just like March, just like FDU, just like St. Peter's, this team, blah, blah, blah. I know that's what probably the reaction online is right now. You also have to understand that Purdue has lost 2 games. It's now January 10th. Both teams that they have lost to have both arguably played the best games of their season, while Purdue played arguably the 2 worst games of their season. And those 2 teams are NCAA tournament teams. Like Northwestern's kind of a fringe team. They're struggling a little bit. Don't be surprised if they kind of go on a heater a little bit as Boo Buie kind of buoys himself, to use a pun there, up a little bit more throughout the season. And they kind of get in as a 9-10 seed, maybe 11 seed as a play-in seed. Nebraska, honestly, with the way that they're playing, would not surprise me to see that Cornhusker team find themselves on the 6 or 7 seed line when it comes tournament time. And so you kind of, in those situations, you just kind of have to tip your hat and move on. And Purdue has got to figure out that they're going to take everybody's best shot, especially when you go on the road. When the number 1 team comes to town, everybody's going to come out. Very rarely are you going to come to an arena as the number 1 team and it's going to be empty and there's not going to be people there. Even Maryland over break filled out their arena. Northwestern, again, it's bare when Purdue's not there. Let's put it frankly that way. And so Purdue's got to find a way to play a little bit more of a consistent game on the road. Again, over the last 3 years, 13-10. And I think I saw Sam King recently tweet out that as the number 1 team, Purdue is now I think 13-6. They've been ranked number 1 6 different times, and they tend to. This is the longest streak that they've had, right? This is the longest streak, buoyed by the Christmas break and so forth. But Purdue just, I think, tends to play a little bit better when they're not the number 1 team in the country for whatever reason. I think they kind of come out with a little bit of a malaise and a little bit flat at times for whatever reason on the road. And I don't know if that's just trying to maintain a steady level of maturity and a steady level of effort and consistency. But they just, for whatever reason, tend to, especially this year, have shown some struggles on the road. Struggled at Maryland a little bit. Obviously, struggled at Northwestern with turnovers. Struggled at Nebraska again with turnovers. But again, the Northwestern game goes to overtime, and it took heroic efforts from 3 different guys, right? Like career nights from 3 different guys almost. Again, Nebraska, 7 guys hit a 3. They shoot 61% from 3. Again, it's taking Herculean efforts by teams at their place to beat Purdue this year. The wheels are not falling off. Don't be doom and gloom. Don't forget last year, UConn had a stretch of, I think, 3 or 4 games where they looked absolutely pathetic. were getting beat by people that they had no business getting beat by, and they get to the NCAA tournament and they just brushed through people, right? And just looked like the dominant team that they had shown most of the year. Everything's up and down, and you know, this is still early January. Um, for all the complaints and so forth that so many people have had over the years of, oh, Painter peaks in December and January and then can't figure it out. Hills and valleys, people, hills and valleys. And Purdue's going to be fine. They're going to be all right. They just need to, I think, find a little bit more consistency in some of their aspects. The rebounding has gotten better. The 3-point shooting, I think, continues to be a really, really strong suit. I think they need to figure out who's taking the shots. Again, no reason that your All-American center, the best player in the country, should only be taking 10 shots. He needs to have, and I know Matt Painter doesn't put a, he doesn't put, some kind of a number out there for Zach to get every night. He's not putting, say, hey, Zach's got to get 15. He's got to get 15. But let's be honest, Zach's got to have 15, 16, 17, shot attempts a game. He's got to. He's the best damn player in the country. And the best damn player in the country should be shooting the ball as much as he wants to. And if Braden Smith is your second best player like he's shown all year, Braden Smith needs to be shooting the ball 10 to 12 times a game. That's where your shots have to come from. And if those guys are struggling and if those guys aren't hitting shots, then that's okay. Then you move on and you find Fletcher Lawyer, you find Trey Kaufman-Renn, then you find, a Lance Jones and a Mason Gillis. But you can't have Zach Edey going, I think 7 of 10 tonight or 6 of 10, shooting that high percentage. You got to get him the ball, I think, a little bit more. And Purdue has got to figure out when teams collapse in the lane, what do they need to do? They need to attack more off of those doubles. The ball is swinging north and south, or I'm sorry, the ball is swinging east and west a little bit too much at times. The ball needs to be kicked out, and they need to attack, and they need to get vertical and get north and south and get into the lane a little bit more instead of just kind of sweeping the ball east and west, because Nebraska obviously had the athletes that they could recover, and Nebraska did a great job of that. So again, credit to Nebraska. What can you say? That's probably one of the better games I've seen from a team offensively playing Purdue in quite some time. And every once in a while, a team that has that ceiling, that's where their ceiling is. You saw Nebraska ceiling tonight. That's about as well as they can play. Purdue ceiling is much higher, and Nebraska's floor is much lower, and Purdue's floor is much higher. But that's life in the Big Ten. Don't forget, keep checking out Hammer and Rails for more Purdue basketball content. Don't forget, again, the transfer portal is still open, and to continue checking back as more of our contributors keep giving you the best information on Ryan Walters and the transfer portal moving forward. Bowler up.